You know, my friend, there's a certain kind of pride that runs quietly through most of us. It doesn't shout, it doesn't boast. It just sits there, calm, steady, whispering, "Handle it yourself." We grow up hearing that strength means independence, that real courage means standing alone, that we should pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, fix our own problems, fight our own battles. And maybe that's half true, because yes, there's power in resilience, in grit, in doing what needs to be done when no one else will. But here's what I learned the hard way. The other half of strength, the deeper, quieter half, is knowing when to ask for help. I remember meeting a man named Michael. He owned a small music shop downtown, a narrow little place tucked between a bookstore and a bakery. You could walk past it 100 times and miss it, but the moment you stepped inside, it felt like stepping into another world. The air smelled of wood varnish and old music. Violins hung like sleeping birds from the ceiling, and somewhere in the background you could almost hear time itself holding its breath. Michael restored violins for a living. It was delicate work, the kind that demanded patience, precision, and a kind of reverence most people never see anymore. He worked alone, always had. Once, while he was polishing a violin neck, he said without looking up, "If you want something done right, you do it yourself." And for 20 years that belief carried him. Or maybe, quietly, it weighed him down. I used to stop by sometimes just to talk. He'd keep working while I told him stories about the people I met on the road. He never looked up, just nodded occasionally, humming softly to the rhythm of his own solitude. But one afternoon, when I pushed open the shop door, something felt different. Michael was sitting at his bench, his head in his hands. 2 violins lay unfinished beside him, and his fingers were trembling. He said quietly, "I can't keep up anymore, Dale. My waiting list is 6 months long, but I can't bring anyone in. They'll mess it up. They won't care like I do." And I remember saying to him, "Maybe you don't need someone who cares exactly like you. Maybe you just need someone who cares enough to learn." He didn't say anything, just stared at the floor, like a man standing on the edge of a bridge he wasn't sure could hold his weight. A month later, I stopped by again, and for the first time in years, the air in that shop was different. There was laughter, and there, beside Michael, stood a young apprentice, a boy maybe 20 with sawdust on his sleeves and hope in his eyes. They were sanding a violin together. The boy's strokes were uneven, a little clumsy, but Michael didn't flinch. He just guided the hands, steady and patient. When he looked up and saw me, he smiled, the first real smile I'd seen on his face in years. He said, "You were right, Dale." I thought asking for help meant losing control. Turns out, it gave me back my joy. That day he finished 2 violins before noon, and he told me something I'll never forget. I used to restore instruments. Now, I restore music. It made me think, how many of us are just like Michael, polishing our problems alone in silence? We tell ourselves it's noble. We tell ourselves it's strength. But really, it's isolation. And isolation is exhausting. Because asking for help isn't surrender, it's partnership. It's the courage to say, "I trust you enough to see me when I'm not perfect." For years, I carried that same quiet pride Michael had, that same belief that strength meant standing alone. And it followed me right into my work, especially when I first started teaching. Back then, I thought I had to do everything myself. The planning, the speaking, the scheduling, even the little things no one else noticed. I believed that if I asked for help, people would think I wasn't prepared, that I didn't have it all together. So I carried it all, every responsibility, every detail, every weight. And you know what happens when you hold everything too long? The joy starts to fade, not all at once, slowly, quietly, the way a song fades at the end of a record. One night after class, I stayed behind to clean up. The lights were dim, the air still heavy with chalk dust and tired conversation. I remember standing there sweeping the floor, feeling like I was the last person awake in the world. Then I heard footsteps behind me. It was one of my students, a quiet man named George. He hesitated in the doorway and said, "Mr. Carnegie, can I help you?" My first instinct was to say no, to smile politely and handle it myself, because that's what pride does. It makes us say no before we even think. But something in his voice stopped me. Something simple, something kind. So I handed him the broom. We swept in silence for a while, the soft sound of bristles against the floor, the hum of the lights above us. Then George said, "You know, when you let people help you, it makes us feel like we belong." I stopped, just stood there, leaning on that broom, letting his words settle in. He wasn't talking about cleaning up a classroom. He was talking about connection. I'll never forget that night, because in that moment I realized something I'd been running from all my life. It wasn't weakness I'd been avoiding, it was closeness. There's a quiet kind of strength in those 5 small words, "Can you help me?" They don't just open doors, they open hearts. And the beautiful part? When you ask sincerely, people rarely say no. Because deep down, everyone wants to feel useful, everyone wants to know they matter. But I understand why asking feels so hard. It's not because we don't trust others. It's because we don't trust that we'll still be respected after we ask. We fear rejection. We fear judgment. We fear owing someone something. And yet every time we swallow that fear and reach out anyway, something shifts. Life expands a little. The weight lightens. The silence between us becomes less lonely. Because the truth is simple. We weren't built to carry the world alone. You might laugh at this, but I once proved that to myself in the most ridiculous way possible. I got lost driving through the mountains of Colorado, refused to pull over, told myself I'll figure it out. An hour later, I was still lost and nearly out of gas. When a stranger finally stopped and said, "Sir, you passed the turn 20 miles ago," I couldn't help but laugh. I'd spent an hour proving I was independent and not 1 minute being wise. That's what pride does, my friend. It trades time for ego. It keeps us stranded on roads we could have left behind miles ago if only we'd asked sooner. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Dale, asking for help might work for you, but in my world, people judge weakness. And maybe they do. Some will. But that says a lot more about them than it does about you. The right kind of people don't lose respect for honesty. They build trust from it. See, I used to think that the moment I admitted I was struggling, I'd lose credibility. That people followed confidence, not confession. But I was wrong. Because when you share your truth, not to impress, but to connect, you don't lose influence, you deepen it. Vulnerability isn't performance, it's presence. And presence builds bridges faster than perfection ever could. I remember giving a talk once at a company downtown. Afterward, a young manager named Emily came up to me. Sharp mind, calm voice, eyes that showed the weight she carried. She said, "I wish I could ask for help like that, Dale. But if I do, my team will think I can't handle leadership." I smiled and said, "Emily, leadership isn't about doing everything. It's about showing people how to stand beside you." She didn't look convinced, but I could tell those words sank in somewhere. 3 weeks later, I got an email from her. She'd decided to delegate part of her workload, just a few tasks at first. She wrote, "I was nervous, but something surprising happened. Instead of doubting me, my team stepped up. They started taking ownership, not because they had to, but because they wanted to." Her honesty gave them permission to care. That's when I realized something that's never left me since. Asking for help isn't about getting something done. It's about building belonging. Still, I understand that fear. I've felt it myself, that tightness in your chest before admitting you can't do it all alone. That little voice that whispers, "You should be stronger than this." But strength isn't silence, it's honesty. And honesty, spoken with humility, has a way of transforming everything around you. I sometimes ask people in my seminars, what's harder for you, asking for help or offering it? Almost everyone says asking. And when I ask why, the answer's always the same. I don't want to burden anyone. But let me tell you something. People want to be needed. It's how we feel alive. It's how we connect. When you let someone help you, you're not taking from them. You're giving them a chance to live out their own kindness. Think about it. How do you feel when someone you care about says, "Could you give me a hand?" You don't feel burdened. You feel trusted, valued, human. So why would we deny others that same joy? That's what asking really is. Not a request for rescue, but an invitation to relationship.
A few months ago, I met a man named Ben. He was a single father, worked 2 jobs, and still found time to volunteer at the community center. One of those men who seemed to hold the world together with tired hands and a quiet smile. He told me once, "I never ask for help, Dale. I don't want anyone thinking I can't manage." I nodded, because I knew that feeling, that pride that hides behind phrases like, "I'm fine." The same pride that whispers, "Don't trouble anyone, just keep going." Then, one night, Ben's car broke down on his way home. Instead of calling anyone, he walked 3 miles through the rain, cold, soaked, stubborn. When his neighbor found out the next morning, she said, "Ben, I would have driven you in a heartbeat. Why didn't you call?" He shrugged and said softly, "Didn't want to trouble you." And she smiled and said something I'll never forget. "Letting me help wouldn't have troubled me, Ben. It would have reminded me that we're neighbors." That night, something shifted in him. He told me later, "I used to think asking made me a burden. Now I see it's how people find each other. Because asking, my friend, isn't weakness, it's invitation. It's a quiet way of saying, 'Come closer. Let's carry this together.'" And I'll be honest, I've been Ben more times than I'd like to admit. When I first started writing, I struggled quietly. I doubted my words, my worth, my voice, but I kept it all to myself. After all, what would people think if a man who taught confidence was full of doubt himself? So I put on a brave face. I smiled for others, even when my own light was fading. Until one day, my old friend Samuel, a quiet newspaper editor with wise eyes, invited me over for coffee. We sat for hours, And somewhere between the stories and the silence, I finally told him how lost I felt. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it, just listened. When I finished, he leaned back, smiled gently, and said, "Dale, you've been trying so hard to inspire others that you forgot something. Even the teacher needs a teacher sometimes." That single sentence cracked something open in me, because he was right. I'd been hiding behind competence when what I really needed was connection. That conversation changed me. It reminded me that no one, no matter how strong or wise, is meant to do this life alone. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this talk is for you too, because the truth is, the moment you reach out, you don't shrink, you grow. Now I know what you're waiting for. You want to know how to ask for help without losing dignity, how to invite support without sounding desperate. Don't worry, that part's coming. I'm going to share with you the same methods I use myself. Simple, real tools that make asking easier, warmer, more natural. But before we go there, I want you to hold on to one truth. You are not meant to carry the world alone. You were built for connection. And every time you open your heart and say, "I could use a hand," you don't lose strength, you rediscover it.
When we last talked, I asked you to pause before saying, "I'll figure it out myself." And I meant it, because that tiny pause, that one heartbeat of humility, can change everything. See, most people never stop long enough to notice when pride disguises itself as strength. They just keep pushing, keep carrying, until one day their back gives out and they whisper, "I wish I'd asked sooner." But I want you to learn something gentler. Asking before you break isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And that's what I want to teach you now, how to do it, how to ask for help with calm, with grace, with respect for yourself and others. When I teach this idea, people often ask, "All right, Dale, but how do I know who to ask or what to ask for?" And I always tell them, don't start with people. Start with clarity. Before you invite help, you have to understand your own need. Not every frustration needs assistance. Some just need patience. Not every obstacle needs a crowd. Some just need focus. But the ones that do need others, those are the ones that grow you. Those are the moments that teach you what community really means. So let's start there, with a little exercise I call the request map. You can draw it on a napkin if you like. Just 3 questions, that's all it takes. Write them down. First, what exactly do I need? Second, who can genuinely help? Third, why does it matter, to me and to them? Most people skip that third question. They think asking is only about their need, but it's not. It's about connection. When you understand how your request aligns with someone else's values or strengths, you're not begging, you're collaborating. Let me show you what I mean. A young man named Ryan once came to one of my workshops. He worked in marketing, smart, ambitious, and exhausted. He said, "I need help from my team, but they never step up. I end up doing everything myself." I asked, "What do you usually say to them?" He thought for a second and replied, "I tell them, I need you to take this off my plate." I smiled, because there was the problem. That sentence was about his burden, not their purpose. So we rewrote it together. He tried saying instead, "You've got a great eye for design. Could you help make this campaign shine?" Same task, different tone. He wasn't dumping work, he was inviting talent. That one shift turned a reluctant team into a motivated one, because the moment people feel seen for their strengths, they don't need convincing, they want to help. That's the first secret of asking well.
Frame your need as an opportunity to connect, not a confession of failure. When you do that, help turns into harmony. Asking becomes collaboration. Try it tonight. Take a notebook and write down your answers to those 3 questions. You'll be surprised how much lighter it feels when your request is grounded in clarity. Because clarity, that's the first act of respect for both yourself and the person you're inviting in. Once you've found your clarity, once you know what you need and why it matters, the next step is learning how to express it. Because knowing your need is one thing, but asking for it gracefully is something else entirely. And that's where what I call the short bridge letter comes in. It's a simple way to reconnect, to ask for help or rebuild trust, without over-explaining, without guilt, and without sounding like you owe the world an apology. This idea came to me the hard way. Years ago, I had a colleague named Jim. Sharp guy, talented. We'd worked together on a few projects, but somewhere along the line we disagreed on something small, and pride did the rest. You know how it goes. A few hurt feelings, some silence, then months pass, and what was once a bridge starts to look like a wall. One day, I needed Jim's perspective for a new project, and I almost talked myself out of reaching out. My pride said, "Let it go. You don't need him." But another voice, quieter, kinder, said, "If you teach people to build bridges, you better build your own." So I sat down and wrote a short note. No dramatic apologies, no over-explaining, just this. "Jim, I was thinking about our last talk and realized I may not have listened as well as I could have. I've been working on something new, and your perspective would mean a lot. Could we talk for 15 minutes this week?" That was it. A short bridge, honest, humble, and human. He replied the same day. "Dale," he wrote, "I'd like that. I've missed our conversations." That message rebuilt a friendship that pride had nearly destroyed. And I realized something powerful. You don't need paragraphs to make peace. You just need presence. Now, you don't have to write a letter, of course. It could be a text, a call, a simple message that says, "I value what we had. Can we start fresh?" But the principle stays the same. Begin with your own humility. Invite connection. Keep it short enough to sound sincere, because the longer we talk, the more we tend to defend, and defense never builds trust. Sincerity does. You know, Carnegie once said, "Begin with your own mistakes before criticizing the other person." That's not just good advice for conflict. It's a foundation for any honest request. When you lead with truth, you don't lose authority, you gain authenticity, and people don't resist authenticity, they lean toward it. Let me tell you about a young manager I once coached. Her name was Olivia. She was smart, driven, but terrified of asking for help. She said, "If I admit I can't handle everything, my boss will think I'm not good enough." I told her, "Try starting with honesty." So she walked into her next meeting and said, "I've realized I may have taken on more than I can do well alone. To give you the best results, I'll need another pair of hands on this project." Her supervisor didn't scold her, he thanked her. And by the end of that week, she had an assistant and her project finished ahead of schedule. 3 months later, she got promoted. Why? Because honesty and humility don't weaken your image, they strengthen your credibility. Sometimes all the world is waiting for is your honesty. Now, let's talk about something most people overlook when asking for help. Something that changes everything once you understand it. I call it the 30-70 rule. If you've ever asked for help and walked away feeling unheard or misunderstood, this might be why.
See, when we're nervous, when we finally work up the courage to admit we need something, we tend to talk too much. We explain, we justify, we defend, trying to make our request sound reasonable, safe, acceptable. But in doing so, we fill up the very space where empathy is supposed to grow. Here's the rule. When you ask for help, spend only 30% of the time speaking, and the other 70% listening. Because people don't help you for your reasons, they help you for theirs. And when you give them room to speak, to feel, to connect their why to your what, you turn your request into a relationship. Let me tell you a story. A small business owner once came to me frustrated. He said, "My employees never share ideas. I ask for feedback every week and nobody says a word." I asked him, "Do you record those meetings?" He said, "Yes." So we played one back together, and what we found was simple. He had filled 90% of the meeting with explanations, reasons, instructions. There was no silence left for anyone else's thoughts. The next week, he tried something different. He walked into that same meeting, looked around the table and said, "I'd love your ideas on how we can serve our customers better. I'll take notes, you talk." Then he sat back and stayed quiet. At first, there was hesitation. Then a single voice spoke. Then another. And within minutes, the room came alive. Ideas, laughter, ownership. He called me later and said, "Dale, I finally learned that silence is the best invitation." That's the heart of the 30-70 rule. Ask with clarity, then listen with curiosity. Because when people feel heard, they don't just help you, they invest in you. Listening is the highest form of asking. It's how generosity finds its way toward you. Try it next time. When you make a request, pause after you ask. Don't fill the silence. Let it breathe. You'll be amazed how often people will step into that space with something honest, something real, something that reminds you that asking isn't a transaction. It's connection. Now, let's bring it all together. When you combine clarity, humility, and listening, asking for help stops being awkward and starts being inspiring. You become the kind of person people want to help, not because they pity you, but because they feel part of something meaningful. That's what asking really is, an act of partnership, not dependence. Let me tell you about a woman named Teresa. She ran a small community art program for children, a place where paint and laughter mixed with possibility. When the budget got tight, she could have quit. No one would have blamed her. But instead, she took a breath and asked. She went to a local bakery owner, a kind man named Paul, and said, "I know business has been tough lately, and I wouldn't ask if this weren't important. You've always believed in helping kids dream. Would you like to be part of something that keeps that dream alive?" He said yes, without hesitation. He baked 500 cookies for free. They sold every last one of them and raised enough money to keep the program running for another year. Later, Paul told me, "I didn't do it out of charity, Dale. I did it because she made me feel needed." That's the quiet power of asking well. And here's something worth remembering. When you ask for help, you're not just changing your own life. You're giving someone else the chance to grow their generosity. That's how community is built, one humble request at a time. Before we close, I want to leave you with a little reflection to try this week. It's simple, but it can shift how you see asking forever. Each night, write down one thing you could ask for tomorrow. Maybe it's advice,
maybe feedback, maybe just company. Next to it, write who you might ask and how it could help both of you. Don't act on them yet, just notice. You'll start to see a pattern. You'll realize most of what you need already lives inside the people around you, waiting to be invited out. And when you're ready, remember this rhythm. Step 1, clarity. What, who, and why. Step 2, connection. A short bridge built from honesty. Step 3, listening. The 30 to 70 balance that lets people feel heard. Follow that rhythm, and you'll never have to chase support again. It will come to you naturally, because people are drawn to authenticity. A few months after Michael, the violin maker, took on his apprentice, I stopped by his shop again. He was teaching the boy how to tune a string by ear. He said, "The hardest part isn't tightening the string, it's stopping before it snaps." I laughed and said, "That sounds like life." He smiled. "Exactly. You can't make music if you're wound too tight. Sometimes you need another hand to find the right note." And then, as if to prove it, he handed the violin to the boy. The bow drew across the strings. The sound was pure, trembling, alive. Michael looked at me and said softly, "You know, I spent 20 years mastering silence. It took asking for help to finally hear harmony." That's the truth I want you to carry with you tonight. Strength isn't in the silence of self-reliance. It's in the courage to reach across the table and say, "I can't do this alone." You are not less for asking. You are more open, more connected, more human. The world doesn't reward perfection. It rewards participation. And asking for help, that's how we join the great conversation of life. So tomorrow, when that old voice whispers, "Handle it yourself," pause, smile, take a slow breath, and ask anyway. Because help, real, genuine help, has probably been waiting for you all along. And asking, my friend, isn't weakness. It's the first strong step toward everything that truly matters.